Another episode of Through Africa. I am your host, Mercy Bamdola. My guest today joining us in the studio is Farrell Humbo, a computer engineer specialized in artificial intelligence. He helps businesses and people put AI to work in a concrete way by building agents and automations that save time and run tasks on their own. The kind of systems he builds can generate leads, qualify prospects, answer customers, and even run operations that used to take entire teams. Hello, Umbo. You're welcome to the show today.
Hi, Mercy. Thanks for having me.
You're really welcome to our show. And this is the first time we are having a guest talking to us about AI. So I believe that this is going to be a very great one. Now, to the very first question, generative AI shaping industries around the world. For our viewers who may not understand, what exactly is generative AI and why is understanding and adopting this technology becoming so important in today's world?
So generative AI is something that has been around for a couple of years now, and it's actually coupled to another term that is called agentic AI. Now, the simplest way to understand generative AI is to go from an example that everyone knows about, ChatGPT. So I'm pretty sure you are watching us, you've probably already used ChatGPT or Gemini. And basically, generative AI is a form of artificial intelligence that is able to understand and generate text. And the technical term for that is large language models. So we call them LLMs. And the way they work is that they work as brains, right? So they mimic the way that the human brain works with what is called neural networks and accomplish tasks that human will normally do, with their brains. Now, the reason why I introduced the second term, which is agentic AI, is because when ChatGPT arrived, we were all excited about using it. We'll go on the app and ask questions. But very soon, we faced like a ceiling because people were asking questions, but then they couldn't take any action, right, behind the question. So it was like you have a pretty good secretary, but she's only good at answering questions. She cannot take action. So it's frustrating, which is why agentic AI has been created. So agentic AI is a form of artificial intelligence with three key features. And the first one is the LLM that I just explained. And the way to think about it is like a brain, right? It's able to think or to reason. The second element of an agentic AI system is what is called tools. And the way I like to explain it is just imagine you have your brain. Let me actually give an example to illustrate this better. When you go on ChatGPT and ask it a question, think of ChatGPT as a wrapper around the LLM, right? So it's like the mouth, the ears of the LLM. That's why you're able to talk to it and it responds back to you, right? So it's the head, you have the brain inside, you have the mouth and the ears, but you have no hands and no arms. Now, agentic AI has the second component, which are the features, and that's actually the arms and the legs of the system. So with arms, you are able to take action. So you can, for example, create a document, you can modify an existing document. So action have been a game changer when it comes to AI. And the last element is what we call memory. Now, oftentimes when I talk about memory, people say like, okay, what is the difference between the brain and memory? And those are actually two different things. So the brain is capable of reasoning. So if I take another example to illustrate this, think of people who suffer from Alzheimer, right? If on a specific day you ask them, it's raining today, should you take your umbrella or not? They'll probably say yes, because it's a reasoning task. But if you ask them, what did you eat yesterday? They might not be able to recall it because they have a dysfunction in their memory, right? So memory is different from reason. So an agentic workflow has these three key features: the LLM, which is the brain, capable of reasoning. The second element is the action element. So it's able to act with tools, and it also has memory. And memory allows it to improve over time through iteration. So it's able to take the outcome or the result from the first execution and then give itself feedbacks, like we call it feedback loops, and then improve over time.
That was a great analogy there. And I think this analogy helps us, understand better what it is that agentic AI is and, generative AI as well. Now, from your own perspective, let's come to business now. How is AI changing the business landscape? And why is it important for business people to even look into AI in today's world?
It's becoming like a non-negotiable thing in business today, because as you know, competition is something that is present in business all over the world, and every business owner today is craving AI in their business. Matter of fact, there is a meme that I saw on the internet that is quite funny for me. And the meme says, who are we? We are CEOs. What do we want? We want AI. For what? We don't know, right? So business owners don't know why they need to implement AI in their business now. And that's why people like me comes into place. They need AI system, or any business owner looking at this, or entrepreneurs looking at watching this right now needs AI, simply because it's an accelerator, basically, right? Because what used to take hours, days, months is now being done in a fraction of the time. And I'm talking about the implementation, right? So let me give you a couple of examples. Before, for every business around the world has common problems or issues. So one of them is being able to generate qualified leads for the businesses, right? Now, in the past, we used to have people, human beings, doing these jobs, and there were constraints about the productivity that a human being can have. A specific, let's say, a secretary can only work productively 4 or 5 hours out of every 8 working hours. So there were constraints around how humans work on specific tasks. Now, these tasks are being done with AI on a much faster, cheaper, and sometimes even better, right? So businesses looking to increase productivity, increase revenue, are now looking into these AI solutions to implement in specific areas of the businesses. So if you're a business owner and you are really, this seems like a strange world for you, like something that you really don't comprehend, a mystery for you, it's actually quite normal. And because this is still a new technology, but you still have time and the opportunity to learn about agentic AI and progressively implement it in your business.
Exactly. Now, I want us to also talk about, medium and small scale businesses, especially in Africa, because this show is termed Through Africa.
Yes.
So we're focusing now on Africa. Can you share with us practical examples of how, AI can help small and medium scale businesses to, scale their businesses in general?
Absolutely. So, again, I like to explain things through example because people tend to comprehend it better. And the very first type of system that people love, personally, that I have experience with, are lead generation systems, right? And it can be anything from generating leads from platforms like LinkedIn or other social media platforms, YouTube and all the other platforms, or simply also through databases. And when I say lead generation here, there are actually many steps to it. So you first have to collect the data. You have to clean the data. You have to enrich the data. And basically, every business owner, one of the core assets are actually the prospects or the customers list, right? So if you have a list of 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 potential buyers for your business, you have gold. So today with AI, you are able to build systems that will help you get this type of leads on a more affordable, faster, and better way, right? So you have marketing systems like lead generation system. You also have customer support systems. So today there are what we call AI chatbots and even voice agents that are very capable to answer people's questions about your business. Now, if you have a business, you probably have a staff and they come to work from 9 to 5. Now, what about your customers? Some of your customers have questions at 8 p.m. at night or at 10 p.m. at night. Now, it's frustrating for the customer to wait the next morning or to wait the whole weekend before getting an answer. So as a business owner, if you set up a chatbot on your website, on a platform where your customers can access it, you are actually becoming, you are creating for yourself an edge over your competitors, because a lot of people are not doing it now. And this is applicable for small and medium-sized businesses all across Africa, regardless of your business model, because customers will always want to be listened to, and they always want speed. They always want better quality. These are things that are timeless, right? So AI systems and agentic AI does allow you to have this type of system. The last example I can give are operations. I've worked with many companies to scale their businesses from 6 to 7 figures. And usually when you get starting, when you are just like at the startup level, your first objective is really to get money in, right? So you focus on marketing, you focus on sales. But then as you get your first few million, let's say, of cash flow in, you'll start having other problems like operational problems. And these operational problems are what we call bottlenecks in businesses that can prevent you from scaling. So when you work with a professional, they are able to tell you, so actually in your system right now, you have this. This element is keeping you from going from 10 customers to 100 customers. It can be the fulfillment of your services. It can be the response time, the customer satisfaction score. It can be pretty much anything related to your business. So simply said, I think it's not optional anymore. It's very compulsory for businesses, regardless of the size. Actually, I believe small and medium-sized businesses will benefit more from this because they are able to hire world-class expert level, like regardless of where they are in Africa, literally, at a fraction of what it used to cost, right? If you wanted to hire an operational manager from the US or from Europe, you'll spend hundreds or tens of thousands of dollars to do that, right? But today, AI gives you access to this type of technology just at a fraction of the cost. Now, the barrier is still you being able to understand the technology and to apply it in your business, right? So that is why people like me exist.
Thank you for that great, breakdown of how these things are done and how, AI even finds its place in businesses. Because, a lot of us, when we hear about AI these days, maybe let's say students, they think of it as just ChatGPT.
Correct.
But with your perspective, we understand that AI is more than just the ChatGPT that we know, or the chat boxes that we know. So now I want us to also talk about, we've talked about what is going on right now. Let's talk about the future. In the coming years, how do you think AI will contribute to economic growth, especially on the continent, considering that we have, numerous countries in Africa itself? How do you think AI will contribute to development of Africa, economic growth, job creation, innovations, and technology, the technological sector in general?
Okay. I think Africa can have a strategic place when it comes to AI. I say can because it's a possibility, right? And I will enumerate a couple of reasons why I think so. Right now, we are missing when it comes to AI because AI has multiple layers to it, right? It's not just ChatGPT that we know. We have, for example, the chips. The chips are AMD, NVIDIA as well, like the big players, the American corporations. That's where they are sitting, right? Because AI sits on 5 layers. You have the chips, you have the energy to run the data centers. So chips, energy, data centers. You also have the infrastructures and the applications. Now, the applications are where I think most people and business owners can take advantages, right? The other 4 layers are more for big corporations and also governments, right? And the reason is simple, is because if you wanted to get into the energy, you have to spend millions of dollars to get into it, right? But if you want to get into the application layer, it's just, you can start literally with a few $100s, right? I'm speaking in dollars because I think most people can just match it with their current currencies. So first of all, we need to understand that AI is a disruptive technology, just like the internet, just like cars.
What do you mean by disruptive technology? A lot of our viewers may not exactly get that term.
Yeah, disruptive technology simply means that it will come and change everything, right? So think back in the days where our ancestors were only moving with horses. And then one day someone came and say, we don't need to use horses anymore. We're actually going to use cars. And people were like, what are you talking about? Because it's something that is new to them. So there is this, we have this, we call it, we are not comfortable with change, right? Change is always get us outside of our comfort zone. So people first are defensive, right? And now just imagine in the context where cars just arrived, all these people with ranches and horses, of course they will lose business, right? Because now we have cars, and cars are a new technology. It's faster than horses, but then cars also came with a bunch of opportunities, right? Now you have oil business, you have the tires, you have the roads for the cars, right? You have the repairs, like the maintenance of the car. So the technology came and wiped probably a lot of people's businesses and interests, but it also created new opportunities. So AI is pretty much the same thing. So what is happening right now is that a lot of traditional businesses, things that are being done in a specific way, are being challenged by AI every day. And now you hear a lot of layoffs. I think we are kind of, I would not say protected, but we are not that affected by layoffs in Africa compared to big economies like the US and Canada, right? Because they are already far ahead. But it's not negative. It can be turned to our advantage. So AI is being disruptive. A lot of jobs replacement is happening, a lot of layoffs. But at the same time, if you have the right set of mind, the right mindset, and you look at the right places, you also see the opportunities, right? So I believe this is probably going to be the biggest opportunity of the 21st century. I don't think this is something that is here just to pass, because it's transforming literally everything and every industry, right? So as Africans, what do we need to do? We first need to educate ourselves on a personal level, and for businesses and even governments, we need to educate our people, right? Because educated people fear less and they are more confident, right? Now, specifically for government, we also need to set regulations, but not regulations around the technologies, but rather around the outcomes and what people are doing with it. Again, for businesses and governments, we need to have data sovereignty, because a lot of models are being created by American companies, Chinese companies, and the models are trained on their data. So it's not really familiar with our reality. So I think Africans, we need to catch up when it comes to data sovereignty, because then we can have better output with the LLMs. Now, the reason why I say Africa can be in a strategic position is simply because we have an unfair advantage, and that is the cost of living, right? And I know when I talk to people, the ideal life that they envision is like staying, let's say, for example, in any African country, let's say Ghana, Nigeria, Benin, where I'm from, or even Kenya or South Africa, and then working with companies in the US, in Canada, in China. This is now possible. So whether you are an individual learning AI to implement it in businesses, or you are a business servicing other businesses, you can operate globally. And since the cost of living in our countries is pretty cheaper than all those other countries, we have a competitive advantage, right? So a company, for example, in the US would rather go with an AI engineer in Benin if that engineer is capable of providing world-class service. So there is a condition to it, which is why I talked about education. So I think we also need to raise our standard to a point where we provide world-class services regardless of what we're doing. That way we stay competitive globally and we don't just see things in Africa. Because I think this is also a mindset problem. We've been consumers for too long. We need to become producers, right? And AI is now an equalizer. It puts not everyone, because people will still say, yeah, we are in Africa, we don't have laptops, we don't have energy,
Yeah,
we have
almost
challenges.
everyone. It puts almost everyone on the same pedestal.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I think there is a great opportunity happening right now. A lot of people are still not aware of it. And that's why I try my best to really teach people, train them, and inspire them, because the most difficult part is to start.
Exactly.
Once they get started, they get excited.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for elaborating on that even much more. Now, you mentioned something. You talked about what businesses and governments should do. That's the next question I want us to come to. You also talked about how people are not always so receptive to change. How do you think that businesses, the government, can use AI responsibly in a way that it doesn't harm the people, in a way that people are also able to receive it much more positively?
I think it all comes down to our beliefs, right? Because at the end of the day, AI for me is like social media. Social media today, you can brain rot yourself by watching, by just doom scrolling every day, or you can become a producer. So each and every one of us have a responsibility to use this responsibly, right? I think we should we must, it's not even a show, we must responsibilize ourselves in knowing what it is and how to use it. Now, companies that want to stay relevant, that don't want to get out of business in the next 12, 18, 24 months, needs to stay competitive. They need to catch up fast. It's very fast. And this is also something that AI is allowing today, is speed of implementation. From the moment you have an idea to the moment where you can put it out there and present it to the world, you can do it in less than a week. You can do it in 2 days, in 3 days. Because before, a website that used to take a week to be developed can now be done in 2 or 3 hours, right? So as a business owner, this is what you're looking for. Now, again, if you want to use this responsibly, I think each and every one of us, we need to have a moral values on how we want to use it at the end of the day. Now, how do we do that is, I think, having institutions and governments putting regulations again, right? Regulations around the whole technology, not necessarily to handicap people from using it, but to just give a frame, to how we use it, what we use it for. People have to be accountable for what they use AI for. I think that at the end of the day, that's what it comes back to, getting people accountable on how they use AI. Now, just to also maybe elaborate a little more, we all use these technologies from American and Chinese companies because they are the one best positioned about AI now. So it's also working in collaboration with those governments, right?
Exactly. And I think you used the word accountability. That's really the crux of it.
Yeah.
Our ability to be accountable for the things that we've done and the things that, the people around us has done is very, very important. Now, finally, just our final question. Let's talk about African youth.
Yeah.
People who want to get into AI. What specific skills do you think they should be looking into, especially the African youths that want to build a career in AI, African youths that want to build a business, but want to incorporate this AI into their businesses? What are the specific skills that you would recommend or you would say that they should look into?
First is becoming AI literate. So understanding how AI technologies work. And this means staying up to date with the tools and updates of the companies. Now, the new generation, we have this privilege where we were born with smartphones. So we are pretty familiar with everything that is digital. So I would say just stay curious first, curiosity and intentionality into learning the technologies because it moves so fast, right? So that is the first skill. I think it's a skill because you can develop it. The second thing is problem solving, right? Because at the end of the day, if you want to make a living, you have to provide value. How do you provide value? It's by solving real life problems. You can solve business problems, you can solve nationwide problems, you can solve individual problems. If I take my example, I work with both businesses and also entrepreneurs and even regular employees, like people, day-to-day people who want to become AI literate. So I do AI education and I teach them. Now, what I see a lot is that because they go on my YouTube and they watch my videos and they come back to me and they always have this feeling of being overwhelmed and still not knowing where to start. So they want someone to stay by the side and tell them, click here and then do this and then do that for the very first few times, right? Mm-hmm. So I do one-on-one sessions with them and show them, okay, this is how to do it. And it's as if they have just a light bulb, right? And once that light bulb just turns on, they never go back again.
They understand what
they understand it, right? So first, education, problem solving, and the last thing I would say is business intelligence. What do I mean by business intelligence? It's simply that you need to be able to translate those problems that you are seeing into profitable business opportunities. And this does take time. Sometimes it takes that you work with an existing business, a boring business. Actually, matter of fact, I would challenge you to go into a boring business, see what they are doing traditionally, and think how you can use AI to solve some of their problems, right? That is where the real opportunity is for the next 12 to 18 months, in my opinion. So if you are able to understand business dynamics, how to make an idea profitable, how to go to market, how to implement fast with speed, accuracy, and efficiency, you set yourself in a good position to take advantage of the AI, opportunity.
All right, there, Farrell Humble, a computer engineer specialized in artificial intelligence. It was really great having you on the show today. Thank you for sharing your time and your knowledge with us.
Thank you, Mercy, for having me. And as the last message, if you want to keep in touch, add me on LinkedIn or on YouTube. I do videos regularly where I talk about AI. And I'll be glad to answer some of your questions in the comments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And with that, we've come to the end of today's episode of Through Africa. I am your host, Mercy Bamgbola. If you'd like to send us questions or suggestions on the show as you have watched today, you can kindly do so on all our social media platforms as AFROTURK TV. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay safe and goodbye.